Welcome to the Game of Life podcast, where we bring you inspiring softball stories, insightful tips from coaches and players, and explore how the game transcends its boundaries to become a metaphor for life. Whether you're a sports enthusiast, a casual fan, or someone just looking for inspiration, you're in for a treat. We'll unravel the tales that go beyond the scoreboard. Discover how perseverance and hard work on the field translates into resilience in your daily challenges. Learn about teamwork, leadership, and the unwavering spirit that fuels success, not just in sports, but in the game of life.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, really busy day, but fired up to be podcasting tonight. Great way to end the day.
Yeah, don't mind the old guy. It's, late at night and here I am on the computer, I should be counting Z's right now, but I'm happy to do it for you.
And for all our listeners. Yeah.
Oh, yes, and them too.
So I have a question I want to start tonight with, and I feel like it'll take us down an interesting path. And I feel like this is something you always hear, but I'm just kind of curious. So what do you think is more important for an athlete? Hard work or talent?
Oh man, I love that. So I'm gonna go like economics for a minute on you because life's all about choices and trade-offs, right? That's a common economics term, and everything has a trade-off and a consequence or a benefit, depending how you look at it. I think it depends. I'm gonna say when you're starting out, and whether you think you like a sport or your parents think you like a sport or you're just doing it for fun or exploring, I don't I don't think there's any way to know what hard work is because you're just doing it because. When you're young, you can tell at an early age what what players in any sport have talent, what players have the hand-eye coordination, what players could be good, right? And I think at some point people have to figure out, am I going to just let my talent ride to X ceiling, or am I going to really have a disciplined process and embrace the hard work and take it from there? Because every level you get, high school, there's a lot of people with talent, but hard work's going to prevail. College, a lot of people with talent, hard work's going to prevail. In the workforce, a lot of natural talent, hard work's going to prevail. So I think over time, it starts with talent, it ends with hard work.
Yeah, I really like the age approach you took because I think that's really true. I mean, to your point, if you're 6 years old and you're playing a sport, you're not really part of the grind. Like you're not waking up and going to practice every day. So I like that aspect. I think it's interesting because when you're young, I think when you're talented, there's two ways you can go, right? You say, "Oh, I'm better than everybody else, so I don't need to work hard." Or you say, wow, look how naturally gifted I am at this. I could be really good if I work hard. I think it's the same way for someone who's maybe not as naturally gifted at something of, I really love this, I want to work hard, or I'm not good at it, so I'm not gonna work hard. Like there's two ways you can go. I think sometimes when you're naturally gifted at a young age at something, you can take it for granted. I also think it's important to have people in your life who tell you that you're good at something when you're at a young age, because I think sometimes kids are just like, yeah, whatever. Like, I don't really recognize that I'm good at something. So I do like that age approach that you took with it.
And again, as a high school coach, I talk one-on-ones with kids all the time that just because X grade levels starting or X grade levels playing more than you, it's nothing more than in their journey that talent might have taken them there. But if you keep working hard, there's no reason that that's going to stay static. I think a good player realizes that you're going to have ups and downs, and talent gets you so far, but the hard work's going to get you through all the yo-yo times, as we talk about, or the tough times.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think overall, my answer, if I had to pick one, is hard work is more important. And I think there's a few reasons. Like, number one, if you're talented, that's awesome. But what happens when it comes to adversity? If you don't know how to work hard and you're just relying on your talent, I think it's a little bit of a slippery slope where at some point in your life, people with work ethic are gonna pass you because they just know how to keep grinding. They know how to get up after they fall, where if you're going off pure talent alone and you fall and you have adversity, you don't really know how to get back up. sometimes. You're just kind of riding the wave of, being naturally good at something where people who work hard aren't afraid of falling down and getting back up. Like that's actually what makes them better.
You just made me think of an analogy. Talent is like starting out in the ocean and just riding the wave in, right? Hard work is paddleboarding through all the surf to get to that point, then letting the wave ride you in.
Yeah,
And when you're younger, you kind of just naturally get put out there already.
yeah.
But to get to X level you want to get at, you have to paddle and paddle and paddle and tread water and get out there and you're exhausted and then all of a sudden you're like, well, wait a minute. Now I have to work hard? I just got to where I thought I was getting. No,
Yeah.
now let's go.
I really like that analogy because I think we talk a lot about process and whatnot. If, you're someone who just rode the wave and you look back and there were no ups and downs in it. Like you literally just rode the wave the whole way. But if you're someone, who paddleboarded in, to use your example, you look back and you're like, look how freaking far I've come. Like I did that. And, I just think that's really interesting. And I think sometimes, and I want to pivot a little bit to like the jealousy factor of this, when it's easy for, let's say I'm someone who wants to be really good at something and I'm working so hard and it just comes naturally to you. I think that it's super important to reflect on things you're talented at and not take them for granted because there could be a person to your left and a person to your right who wish they had the ability you had, but you don't have the same work ethic as them. I think it's just a really interesting concept when you're naturally gifted at something and you take it way for granted, and someone to the right of you is like, wow, I if I had that mixed with my work ethic, look where I'd be.
Well, again, comparison's the thief of joy, right?
100%. I'm just saying this is what
Yeah,
happened in
if you're
society.
working really hard, there's no reason all the people in your circle can't work really hard. If you're not working really hard and you're just relying on talent, that's where the jealousy and the comparing, well, oh, well, how'd they get to that point? Well, they're working really hard, you're not. But if you're working really hard, you're probably with like-minded people. And you know all those cliches, iron sharpens iron, you know. If you be the best, you got to be around the best. I mean, I don't think people doing that think that. I think those are just phrases used by people that aren't doing that.
Yeah. I also think I want to say this the right way. I think it's an interesting concept in life too. Sometimes you want to make sure that you pick something to work hard at that you're also a little bit talented at, right? It's harder if you're starting from zero to something. Like if I woke up tomorrow and was like, I'm going to be a professional ice skater, right? Like I've never done that in my life. So you have to have the perspective of like, okay, like set realistic expectations and whatnot. I just think that's an interesting concept too, where, when you're picking a career, there's passions, there's things you're talented at, and there's a mix of both. I think it's important to kind of include, hey, what am I naturally good at? Because that's what you can excel at as well. Not to say that if you're not talented at something, you can't do it. I just think it's an interesting perspective to keep in mind.
So now we're getting into chicken and egg type stuff, which came first.
Yep.
Uh, and which brings me back to the original point. I think talent has to kind of come before hard work. Not that you can't work hard to become talented, but if you're talented, you're already in a place where you're like, wow, I like this. Where can I go?
And it
And
motivates you to work hard. Yeah.
yes, yes. But hopefully you find a good circle. You find people that want to support you as much as you support them. And it it gets really complicated. I guess that's the best way to say it.
I think too, we've been talking about talent as natural talent. You can acquire talent
Yeah.
too. I think that's the other piece of this that we're missing. And honestly, this is such a tricky conversation because the more we talk about it, I'm like, oh, that's a good point. Wow, I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
Um, I think where my mind's going to is when you look at an athletic team you want to be a part of, what's the right balance? Would you rather have you know, all hardworking people, all talented people? I'm sure that they're going to be both at that point, but I think, what aspect would be more important? Is it a mix? How do you kind of think about that?
I mean, if we want to use softball, I would like to
Well,
take
great sport to pick.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I wouldn't mind. taking the girl that just naturally hits bombs or
Yeah.
can throw 65. Like we can work around that. But at the same time, I'd rather take the girl that works hard long term for a program. And if you have that every year, then you're going to sustain that. You can't sustain a program or a team if you're just looking for the next talent.
Yeah, and I think hardworking people push the talented people to be better. And I also don't want it to come off like if you're hardworking, you're automatically not talented. Like
No,
it's
no,
not
no.
mutually exclusive. I just think, if you're someone who maybe has a little less talent but a much harder work ethic, there's a lot of value in that. And there's a lot of value that you can add to a team, right? So I think about 4-year starter on a team and a bench warmer. Right, you might say, oh, one of them's really talented, but the person on the bench can push that person on the field to be better every day in practice. You're the person behind them who would, take over if they got injured, sick, whatever. You're pushing them every day. You're right behind them, making sure that they elevate their game every single day. That's kind of the example my mind went to.
But there's the trick. It's not the fault of the talented person that makes the team as a freshman, whether it's high school or college. It's not their fault. They're really good. But what's more sustainable?
Mhm. Yeah, yeah,
And I want to know, you finished playing, you retired, everybody retires. And whether you're a pro athlete or a collegiate athlete or a high school athlete that retires, who has less regret or less remorse? The talented player at the end of their career or the hard worker? Now, when I say that, the talented hard worker is going to have zero regret.
right, right.
But for the sake of the podcast, we're kind of breaking it up. But of course, there are plenty of people that do both, and that's a superpower.
Right.
Like
I'm
if you,
thinking for the definition, I'm thinking right now hard worker is like an underdog sort of vibe.
yeah,
Like that's kind of what I'm thinking about it as. Yeah.
I think who has more happiness in their career? That and we're asking like we don't know the answer. We know the answer based on our journeys, but these are questions you can ask yourself as you're playing a sport. You only have set amount of time, and are you
Yeah.
just excited you're talented and can glide through it, or do you love the journey?
Well, I think about too, like talent can be niche to whatever you're doing. Hard
Yeah.
work spans across every aspect of your life. It doesn't turn off. I find with truly hardworking people, it's not, I'm gonna work really hard at work today, but then like take it easy at practice. And then when I get home, I'm gonna work hard again. But later tonight, I'm just gonna not work. Like they don't turn it on and off. It's one thing. And if you're relying on just talent and talent alone, when the phase of your life switches, or maybe you're not doing that anymore for some reason, like there's some sort of switch up, it's going to be really hard.
That hits home. I mean, I'm going to repeat this story real quick. I know I've said it before, but I wanted nothing more than to be a pro golfer. I failed. I'm not a pro golfer. But all those hours of hard work led me to not being afraid to pivot in my career, led me not being afraid to try to coach new sports, led me to just cycle around a lake or swim across the lake or build a putting green in the backyard or take on new coaching responsibilities in sports I've never played when you guys were involved. That the hard work led me to so many more opportunities.
Yeah.
Talent, I mean, I would have been like, oh, I'm not good at that. Why would I pursue that? Hard work leads to pursuit. Talent doesn't.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I think that's a really good analogy and a really good example too. I think, when you're working hard and going through things, it sets you up for success in ways that you don't even know, right? Like any adversity I went through in college made me the person I was to be able to move across the country. Like high
Yep.
school would have never, thought I would do that. So I think it's just stuff like that.
And, when we talk sports, especially, hard work, yeah, I mean, there can be a ceiling. No matter how hard you work, there's so many other people doing the same thing. Sometimes sports is like a zero-sum game. You can only have so many starters. There's only so many teams. But when it comes to the real world and opening a business or finding a career, there's no limitation. Like there's no set limit of people that can be successful. So if you're used to working hard with no guarantees, when you get into the business world, and you're just betting on yourself, right? You're not betting on an opponent. You're not betting on someone else. You're going to win always because you understand there's no quit. The only failure is when you stop. But
Yeah.
when you're playing a sport, no matter how hard you work, there is failure, there's wins and losses because the other team's doing the same thing. But in the real world, you can just keep aligning yourself with people and keep stacking and winning.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think it applies to many other aspects of life because I think going back to what we were talking about earlier, when you are a hard worker and let's say you work so hard at something, you become talented at it, you prove to yourself that you could do that. So what stops you from doing it again in some other aspect of your life? Like now when I walk into situations and I'm not feeling super confident, I'm like, well, I can work hard enough and I can get there. And I feel like it's proving to yourself that fact and that fact alone sets you up to be really successful in life and puts you in a lot of good positions rather than saying, yeah, I'm not good at that, not worth it. It's, oh, that kind of scares me right now. It's out of my comfort zone, but I can rely enough on my work ethic and how I've, proven this to myself before and I know I can get there.
When you take on a new situation and when you challenge yourself, if you're prepared and work hard, nobody at the end of that experience says, "Oh, I wish I didn't do that." It's just like working out, right? At the end of any workout, no matter how you felt before, you're not sad you did it when it's over. It might have been a struggle, right? Or you might not have finished or done your best, but you're still happy you did it. And that's what I think hard work is. You never regret it. It may not get you your original goal or outcome, but it's going to get you an outcome that's better than where you started. And I don't know
Yeah.
if that's always the case with talent, but hard work is sustainable and it will make you better off.
Yeah, and I agree. And one thing I want to touch on too is, if you're talented, don't take that for granted. That being said, if you're not passionate about it and you don't want to do it, don't.
Don't
But
do
don't
it.
act like it's no big deal because there's people out there everywhere trying to
Right.
get to the level you're at. So I think just be, self-aware of things you're good at. Take it with pride, have pride in it, and then, if you're passionate about it, dive into it and continue to work hard because the hard worker who is also talented truly has no ceiling.
So I want to close up and wrap it up with comparing all this to softball. So I work really hard, right? And I'm on said level, modified JV varsity college, rec ball, whatever. I work harder than anybody on the team. I work so hard. I don't quite have the talent that matches it, and I'm not getting the result or playing time I want. Is that for nothing? Because it's going to be frustrating. So what
It's
would you tell that person? Like at the end of the season, I worked harder than anybody. I put in more hours than anybody, and I hardly got any playing time. So
it's
why should I work hard?
It is never for nothing. Ever, ever, ever. Everything happens for a reason. I say to myself all the time, and I've said, like we've talked about this to each other, no one is meant to walk the journey that you walk except for you. And, during my collegiate career at the beginning, I was working hard and I was working harder than I ever had, and I wasn't getting what I wanted. But at the end of the day, like, that made me who I am in so, so, so many ways. It was about teaching myself how to overcome adversity, pushing boundaries like physically, mentally, getting through things I didn't think I could get through, knowing that I've had hard days, but I got through every single one of them. Like, there's just so many things I could continue to list. I also think a big one is if you feel like you're working hard and not getting any better, maybe we're not having the right approach of what we think like working hard is. And I'm going to use, softball for an example. If you're saying I'm in the cage every day for 2 hours hitting and I'm not seeing any adjustments or results. Okay, well, what are we doing in the cage? Like maybe we need some sort of, it's not necessarily the hours you put in, that's a piece of it, but it's also value add, right? Another example I'm going to use, and then we'll pivot back to athletics, but like a lot of people in college would be like, I'm studying for 8 hours a day and I'm just like not getting it. I'm like, okay, like, what do you study? Like, what's your method? You know what I'm saying? It's redefining the approach of hard work to better pair it with success and talent.
You have to have a process tied to it. And again, when the process isn't matching your hard work, it's time to, I mean, I'll use the generic word, it's time to pivot. And maybe you're never meant to start at whatever level in softball or whatever sport it is, but take that hard work and now pursue something different. Find it, keep an open mind, look for it, attack it, and that's happiness. I mean,
And it's
we're not
never,
talking about happiness, we're
but
talking about
It's
But
just back to the fact it's never for nothing. Like there's indirect results of everything you do, right? Maybe you inspired one of your teammates to work harder. Maybe you were a leader on your team. Maybe you like XYZ, I don't know. But there's also indirect results. Like in the pursuit of the goal you're trying to reach, you're also checking off other things while you're doing it that you aren't even focused on.
we'll take the movie Rudy, right? The guy worked
Yeah.
harder than anybody on the team to just be there and play in a play,
Hmm.
but it led him to speaking in a whole career, and
Inspiring thousands of
yeah,
millions of people. Yeah. Yeah.
you can't. We've talked about it before, but you can't ever tie anything into a result. The
No.
result could be out of your control, could be in your control, could be what you're looking for, but it, like you said, it's never for nothing. Just walk your journey, and the hard work's going to take you where you need to go.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if we answered the original question of what's more important. I don't think there is a right answer. But I think we had a really good conversation and I enjoyed this. So I'd be interested to know what some listeners are thinking out there too.
I got I got a t-shirt idea. So you have the chicken and the egg. I'm gonna have a chicken that says works hard and an egg that says I'm talented.
I honestly really like that.
And I'm a talented egg. Well, I'm a hardworking chicken. Well, what's more important?
I think those would fly off the shelves.
All right. Well, in all my free time, I'll get on that. But
Yeah.
someday, you know me, we'll come to an episode and I'll have that t-shirt on.
We'll make sure I get one too.
Yeah, well, you could have a hardworking chicken, I'll have the talented egg, and we'll. All right,
Um,
I think it's run its course. So
yeah, yep. All right.
awesome. See you later.
Yeah, bye.
Bye.